Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Candid Coffee. This weekly podcast is brought to you by the Weblen Director Program. My name is Ramesh Nair, and I will be the host today. I have with me another Weblener and a close friend of mine. This is Arvashni Seeripat. She is based out of US. She has been in the healthcare sector for more than 2 decades, playing global roles. And I know her as a lady uh, with grit and can do attitude. She is very bold, and she has worked in on various projects and handled global teams. So, what we will do is we'll get to know her more during this episode. And without much ado, let's get started. So, welcome to the show, Aroshni. How are you
Thank
doing
you,
today?
Ramesh. Thank you. I'm good. I'm good. I'm so glad I get a chance to talk to you today. So I'm very good.
It's my pleasure to host you, Aroshni. Aroshni, we have discussed about it, but for the benefit of the listeners, can you just walk through your career roadmap and what has been your key milestones for the benefit of our listeners?
So I've been in the healthcare sector my entire life, Ramesh. I'm South African. So I was born in South Africa in a small town called Durban, which is for me the most beautiful place in the world, right? I think everyone, wherever they're born, is the most beautiful place in the world. But it really
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm of Indian descent, but grew up in apartheid South Africa as well, which really shaped my thinking. And it shaped also the kind of industry I decided to get in ultimately. So, being in the healthcare sector for my entire career, really had a phenomenal time in the healthcare sector. And I moved over, not only was I in South Africa, but I also did work in Africa as well. I managed to the continent for some of the business in the healthcare sector. And then I came over to the US in 2016. So I've been in the US now for
Hmm.
17 years. I've managed businesses of increasing complexity during that time. But Ramesh, you asked the question about some of the milestones, right? And if I think about milestones, I think about milestones in three ways. I think about who are some of the people that I've met that have been incredible? And I
Yeah.
measure some of my milestones by some of the people that I've met. And, you know, I feel for me, the people that I've met along this journey of healthcare have been some of the most purpose driven people. They're really
Hmm.
incredible. People who really want to find, as an example, cures for cancer, who really want to make sure that diseases of lifestyle, or hypertension, diabetes, etc., are treated, and people who really want to make sure um, that the population at large live a better life. And I feel like how much more inspired can you actually be when you are surrounded by people like that? Another milestone around people is also the not only the purpose that they have, but the incredible humanity that they bring, intelligence that they bring, and that has been fantastic. So that's the people milestone. The places is this career has allowed me to travel the world, which has also been fantastic. I got to experience different cultures, different approaches, and I realized as well in this process, perhaps what is important for me is not important for everybody else, right? Um,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that governments have, they have programs in place to deal with heart failure or hypertension, as an example. But perhaps the government's primary responsibility is to make sure that their population has running water, right? So it has been a big milestone for me to understand how what is important to me is not important to everyone else. So people, place, and then finally as well, it's given me the opportunity to live out things that matter to me. And that has been incredibly powerful for me.
Thanks, Aroshni, for the three-dimensional outlook that you shared. So, talking about people, we know that you have worked across the globe and with different cultures, different groups. So, what is the learning that you have as a common, which it's a common thread which binds the people across the world? What what would what would be that learning that you can share with our listeners?
Ramesh, I think that people are more similar than they think they are, right? I think people are much more similar than they think they are. Our context changes where we are, right? And I'll give you a very simple example of this. When I came over to the US from South Africa, I thought that it was going to be really different from living in South Africa and living in the US. And it is in some degree, it is. But in other degrees, it's the same thing. I found that I was eating the same food. I was watching the same TV shows. I was having similar conversations. What changed was just my environment changed, right? My
Hmm.
environment changed. And that's a big change. I mean, let's not minimize that. It's a huge change. But some things are the same as well. And so I think for me, to answer your question, one of my biggest learnings are people are much more similar than they think they are. The context changes, the environment may change, but all of us are driven by a couple of core things: doing well for our families, making sure that people around us are well taken care of, igniting our own power and purpose in
Hmm.
ourselves,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
finding joy and happiness. That is universal. That's not,
absolutely.
yeah. So that's been
Absolutely.
my
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. I also had a similar experience. I travel a lot, and I also have a similar opinion on that. Uh, in the last couple of minutes, you have been talking, or you have been repeating the word purpose a lot, right? So, how do you define purpose, Arvish, for yourself, if I
For
may ask?
myself, um, I think for me, I find it very simple. Um, I think it's anything that gives you
Hmm.
joy, gives you joy and brings joy to others around you as well, right? When I think about purpose, I don't think purpose has to be lofty, right? I shared with you, I used to work with people that were truly driven to cure cancer, for that matter, right? And that is incredibly powerful, but not all of us are doing that, right? And I mean, awe of them, but I recognize that's not who I am either. But I think joy can be found in the simplest things. Joy can be found in if someone is really driven to give their families the best possible life that they could, or to ensure that that is really important for them, and that brings them joy, then that for me is purposeful, right? It is purposeful. It is as purposeful for somebody who's actually curing cancer at the end of the day. So I feel that there's purpose in every there's purpose. Our purposes don't have to be big and lofty. Our
Hmm.
purposes are what brings us joy, makes our heart sing, right? And not only for ourselves, but truly uplifts those around us. For me, that's purpose, and may not be the definition of purpose for everybody. I do understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the purpose would change from person to person. That's true. I also understand that you're driven by your values. You are very strong. You have a very strong foundation for your core values and beliefs. Can you
Yeah.
throw some light on that and how that has helped you in your career and in your personal life?
Um, yeah, I think all of us have a set of values, Ramesh. All of us do. And our values are either built from our cultural backgrounds, our own individual experiences, etc. So it's a melting pot of everything that we have consciously and subconsciously experienced that builds us, right? Some values we pull through because our families have always held those values, and we take them along. Sometimes we think we have those values until we totally examine and realize actually we don't believe in the same thing, right? For me, my values, I believe, are kindness, authenticity, and courage. Those are my three key things for me. Kindness, because I believe that it doesn't really matter, no matter how much good I do in the world, if I do it, or no matter what I do in the world, actually. But if it gets done without without kindness and compassion and empathy being at its core of how it is being done, then I wonder about the value of it as well, right? I think about kindness is not something I can say I am kind. This is just something that I constantly think about. Kindness must be experienced. So someone can say, like, I know kindness is my value, but somebody will only will know if I'm kind if they experience me as being kind. Me saying it doesn't make it true. Them experiencing it makes it true. So kindness is really important. Authenticity is being who you are, as being who you are. I find it funny sometimes when people say be more authentic, and I'm gonna go, but if I'm gonna try and be more authentic, isn't then I'm not authentic, right? So authenticity is important, and courage. Ramesh, I know you and I have had a conversation about this, why courage is so important for me, in that I think about everything starts with one step, right? How do you run a marathon? You run a marathon when you were 1 year old and you took your first step, but you have to take that first step to run the marathon, right? Or how do you live a lifetime? By the first breath you took when the doctor hit your backside or your bum so that you could get your first breath, right? So
Right. Right.
courage is about taking that first step, and I'm hoping that I can try and do more of that. Take a first step.
Sure. Thanks, Arvashni, for sharing that uh, insights about courage, and that's really inspiring. One of the things which I wanted to talk about is on one side you talk about kindness, and on the other side you talk about courage.
Mhm.
How are those two linked together? Because if you talk about in the normal parlance, you will say kindness is a person who is a bit soft, right? You tend to be a bit soft, but on the other side, you have a courageous person as somebody who is brave, who is bold, right? So don't you think they are on the two opposite extremes of the spectrum? What's your thought on that?
It's a really good question, and I think it's a question that is a constructed question, right? Because kindness has become something that is considered soft, right? To be
Hmm.
kind
Hmm.
is soft, and I never can understand why somebody thinks that if you care about the next person, that makes you soft. Why? Why is that, right? Our society is actually built on the fact that agriculture meant that we lived together in societies. And if we took care of each other in societies, the society as a whole could prosper. That is the origin of why we have societies, why we have culture. And the origin of culture is built on the fact that you take care of each other. And therefore,
Hmm.
society could could grow grain, could store grain. And if you had a steady supply of food, you could start to actually explore things of the mind because your
Hmm.
hand is not engaged in activity anymore. You can
Hmm.
explore things of your mind. So the basic foundation of our society is kindness, is taking care of each other. Yet somehow or the
Hmm.
other, we've lost all of that to think that this is
Hmm.
something soft. But it was
Right.
something so foundational to allowing us, you and I, to have this conversation today, right? It was something so foundational. And so that's why I always challenge this idea that kindness is a soft thing, because I think to be kind in a world that's sometimes really hard is not an easy thing all the time. The second thing is to be kind, and kindness just means that I feel that you will treat somebody as you want to be treated yourself. You
Hmm.
will extend a hand as you would like someone to extend a hand to you, but you will
Right.
treat people. So why is that soft? If I want to be treated, if I want to treat somebody as I want to be treated, why is that soft? I love
Hmm.
Jacinta Ardern. She's the ex PM of New Zealand, um, where when she resigned her post, or even prior to resigning her post, she said, and I'm paraphrasing her in some words, right? She said that people consider her soft because she's kind.
Hmm.
What they don't know is that that's her superpower. Because
Hmm.
how do you really get people to do things? Now bring us back to the example of how society is built. How did society get people to do things? It's because they cared for each other, and therefore things started happening. And that's
Hmm.
kindness at its core. Courage is not for me the opposite of kindness. Courage,
Hmm.
it takes courage to actually be kind in a world where people want you to be different, right? Who
Hmm.
who have decided that you need to be hard. I don't know what it is to be hard, but maybe I am. There are times when we all need to be a little bit harder. But I don't disagree with that. But I don't think courage is the opposite of kindness. I think courage and kindness are companions that walk the same path. It's just whether you choose to be them on.
Sure. Thanks for those insightful moments, Arvashni. Uh, we have spoken little bit on the purpose of life. Now, if you were to change the gears a little bit, you have been working with one of the most admired Fortune 500 companies for almost 2 decades. How did you get in touch with the Weblin team? How did you become a Webliner? And what's the story behind that?
So Ramesh, I took a sabbatical from working in the healthcare industry earlier on this year, and in January of this year. I did, I worked for my organization, which was incredible. They were fantastic. I had a great time, but I woke up one morning last year in February, and I woke up with a strong feeling that I'm going to die at 81. Don't ask me why 81, Ramesh. I have no idea why 81. I hope I live to 100, but
I was about to. I was about to.
don't know why 81. I asked myself why 81, but 81 is the number, 81. But I'm
So
hoping to
magic
live to
number.
100. Yes, I'm living to 100, but 81. And I
That's
woke
the
up
spirit.
and I asked myself, what do the last 25 years of my career, or 25, almost 30 years of my career, has been amazing. I had a wonderful time, ups and downs, but overall really good, right? But I also asked myself, what do I want the next 30, 40 years to look like, right? What do I want it to look like? And I realized I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be different in the sense that I wanted to do more service, right? I wanted more service in my life. I wanted to do more service for uh, in the industries, more service for other people around me as well. And I wanted to write. So I realized I wanted to do that. So I joined Veblen because Veblen gave me the opportunity to learn more about board service, to use the expertise and experience that I've had over the last 2 decades, as you mentioned, and to apply it in service of a board. And I loved that idea. I love the idea that the Veblen community, the Veblen program, number one, builds a community that you get to know and engage with, and a community of incredibly talented people. So that's what I loved about it. And the second thing, what I loved is it really shaped and it shared in order to shape what board service will actually look like. So those two key things were really important for me, which is why I joined Veblen, why I joined the program.
Great. I also understand that you're playing a very pivotal role and leading a leadership program for the Webliners. Can you share some insights on that?
Sure. And I think that, everything that we do in life is circular, right? And so all the experiences that I've had in the industry, I've loved actually that the corporate world is phenomenal in the sense that the exposure to talent is incredible, not only in the sector of healthcare, as in the researchers, etc., but the marketing folks, the sales folks, the psychology behind it. And I learned so much in that process, right? I learned so much. And so getting onto the Veblen program as well, one of the things that really struck myself and a couple of other folks as well is when we're thinking about board service, we're thinking about how do we truly understand our own areas of expertise? How do we understand our own experience, which opens the door for us to get onto a board? But if we're thinking about service, service must allow us to be the most effective with our expertise and our experience. So the program that we've started to engage on we've just recently engaged on it, is saying, once we've opened the door with expertise and experience, now let's ensure that the service that we have on that board is as effective as possible. And so this program is designed to really help us understand core belief systems, and understand how those core belief systems shapes values and how those values show up as behaviors. And I think one of the deep recognitions I've had in over my career over the last years has been that we all make decisions. We make recommendation based on our own value system. We like to think that we make it just on the data, but we interpret the data based on our own values and biases, and that's how we make
Absolutely.
recommendations. So and it's not that you will change anything of yourself, right? Because we are who we are as people. We are who we are. We're not changing stuff about ourselves, but having awareness, being able to, if you would permit me, a little bit abstract idea, Ramesh, but having an awareness in that you can observe yourself, observe your belief systems, observe your values, having that ability to have that awareness of it just allows us to be more conscious of it when we walk into a boardroom. And I think that is power in itself. Consciousness is power. What we want to be is consciously constructive when we are in a boardroom. What we don't want to be, on the other end, is unconsciously destructive, because then we don't know why we are doing these things, right? And so the program is we've just started in its infancy, but hopefully at the end of the program, we will really have a much more stronger awareness of who we are and how we show up and how we make decisions, so that we can catch ourselves in the moments that matter.
Sure. Yeah, and talking about self-awareness, what comes to my mind is it helps you to operate from a state of compulsive reaction to a state of controlled response, right? So that gives you the ability to pause, to understand what is happening, the context, understand how others may perceive it, and then behave accordingly based on the context,
Right.
and give a very appropriate response. Yeah.
Agree.
So, yeah. So you talked about psychology, biases, marketing. How did this all come together, Arvashni?
Are you meaning from a career perspective, Ramesh?
From a career perspective, from an interest perspective, because these are different silos, right? So how do you manage to
Ramesh,
learn all these things and bring it together?
I'm going to suggest that they're not different. I'm going to suggest that they are the same continuum, just that we apply it in different ways, right? So my first job in pharma was actually a salesperson. So I sold drugs. I was a sales rep, the drug rep, right? And I loved it. I thought it was the most amazing job. I mean, imagine when you're really young, you have you're having a deeply intellectual conversation, right? Because it's intellectual, and you're talking about drugs, and you're talking about the body and the systems and the diseases. So really deeply intellectual. But I got to do something I really loved, which I love talking to people, right? And clearly, I like talking to people, right? And so the job
I can
was
see that.
the job was wonderful in that it gave me that opportunity to do that. But in that process, I think what I realized is that I like talking to people, not necessarily to talk, but I liked actually engaging so that I could hear what they were saying, right? I loved hearing what they had to say. I loved trying to understand what makes somebody do this decision better or make this decision versus not. Why did some doctors choose to treat in a certain way and others not? So that all of that really made me really interested in the psychology behind why people did things. Because I'm the same person having the same conversation, yet this person's responding differently to that person, right? So why is that? And so I got into marketing, the normal stepping stone, you go from sales and go into, and I got into marketing. And for the first years, I did the normal marketing things, right? And then Ramesh, I was what was called a franchise head for a business in Africa. And one day I was getting to the airport, and I was in Nigeria, and I watched this mother standing on the side of the building, capturing water in a you have these drums that are cut in half, and she's capturing water in one of these big plastic drums type of thing. And I thought to myself, here's me trying to sell something, or at least talking about diseases so that we can improve the lives around them, but I don't know what is truly driving a decision here, because what is important for me, and I shared this in the beginning, is not important for somebody else.
Absolutely.
All, right? Yeah. Which made me go deeper into not just understanding the physical context of why, people are making decisions. That's easier to see why you prioritize giving running water over something else, but the psychology behind why it's happening. And so I became really interested in that. And I got very much more deeper in that from a marketing sense. Why do people make decisions? And I mean, books are written about this. Nobel Prizes were given for this, right? The economics of making a decision, etc.
Yeah.
And while it started about applying it to work, I realized it's got nothing to do with work. It's got to do with people. It's about understanding people. And that's how I think this whole process of understanding beliefs and biases, how they shape and drive us, became very much part of how I speak and engage today.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing your rich experience, Arvashni. Yeah. So, what is the best kept secret of Arvashni?
If I say it on a podcast, it can't be a best kept secret.
Oh, that's the reason I'm asking. So it's still a secret. Nobody knows.
Well, I don't know if it's a secret, but something that I love doing. I love writing. I love writing. I express myself through writing. I've come to realize that my service is through writing, right?
Excellent.
So that's something that it's my best kept secret. But what else? Another thing I will share that I think is interesting, and I'll link it back to the Veblen program in a way, right? Is we were both just having a giggle about the fact that I love talking to people, right? But I'm really in awe of actually the Veblen community. I'm in awe of the community, and I'll tell you why I'm in awe of this community, right? Number one, it continues to grow at an incredible rate. So there's value. People are seeing value in this community. But I think of the community as like three types of categories of people, broad categories, right? We shouldn't categorize people, but broad categories. I think we have a group of entrepreneurs who've always been entrepreneurs, who are incredible, absolutely incredible people. And I'm in awe of the work that they've done, because you hear some of the things that they are doing and you think, oh my God, how do you do that? Right? But they do that. Right. Then we have another group of folks who are probably entrepreneurs, but also doing work on a single basis, like consultancies, etc. Right? Some of you and I in some cases, right? So consultancies, things. And then I think that's a different skill set, because I think that's also amazing, engaging one-on-one with people, but also engaging with larger organizations to bring value to larger organizations. And then there's a third group of executives who are also on the program, and who hold very senior roles in their current organization. And I just think about the decisions they're making all the time, etc. So these three groups, I'm not going to call them cohorts, but categories of people are incredible. And what really strikes me around Veblen, around these, is that there's such a diverse group of people find value in this program, and everybody's getting value in different ways out of the program as well.
Absolutely.
So I love that. That's one of the things, I think, one of the secrets is I love talking, but the fact that we have this incredible community allows me to engage with this community as well. I think one of the joys of joining the Veblen community is that, of course, I've met people like yourself, Ramesh, which has been incredible. And in addition, every week, I engage with one or two people from the Veblen community, just on a one-on-one basis and talking. And to be honest, if I look back today to what it was when I joined the community in April, I think, how many people have we been exposed to? How much of wisdom is sitting in this group of people?
Absolutely.
And that for me has been fabulous. So when I think about, I think earlier on today we were talking about if there's 100 people with about 20 years as an average of experience,
Yeah.
that's 100 times 20, that's
20.
2,000
Yeah.
years of experience, right?
Yeah.
My God, Ramesh, I think about the value and wisdom that sits in that. That is the
Absolutely.
power of this community.
And it's an untapped potential yet
Absolutely.
to be tapped.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sure. So it was an interesting discussion, Arvashni, so far. If I may call you the kindness advocate, you have been practicing, you have been advocating kindness a lot, right? Uh, what message will you have for our listeners?
Ramesh, I don't know if it's a message, but I'll share something that's happening that I'm experiencing at the moment, right?
Mhm.
I think that when I was in my early career times, I was very focused on career, right? Building the career, doing all of this stuff,
Right.
lots of intention, lots of discipline. But I realized what I lacked was a little bit of playfulness. I lacked
Hmm.
playfulness, right? Because I was so
Hmm.
focused and so disciplined on doing things. And as time is evolving, I've come to believe that life is made up of three things. I mean, it's made up of numerous things, but these three things are important for me. If you have intention or you have a vision for something, really important. So you have your heart, your head is really focused on this. And this is all about bringing the head in the process, right? Your intention and your vision. You have incredible discipline, which is all about your hands, right? So the discipline to make things work. You take action, you make things work. So you have a vision and you bring your discipline. But if you don't have heart, if you don't have playfulness, if you don't have kindness, those two things will do really well, but there will always be something missing. So
Missing. Yeah.
my intention at the moment is to bring the head, the heart, and the hands closer to each other. So to bring intention, discipline, and lots of playfulness closer to each other, and hopefully peppered with a bit of kindness. So I don't know about message, but I'll say let's also have lots of fun. When all the work that we do, no one has to teach people, I think, nowadays, how to actually be very focused and how to have a lot of discipline. Yes, you'll have, sometimes you can go off the rails or whatever, but you always come back and be disciplined and focused and stuff like that. Some or the other, I think we've lost the art of having lots and lots of fun. We've lost the
Yeah.
art of having lots and lots of kindness in there. And that's what I think also just need to bring back.
Sure. So the key message is basically enjoy, be joyful, enjoy your life, enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey, enjoy your life. And when I say have fun, Ramesh, I'm talking about laughing and, cracking jokes. I'm not saying go and do major things. I'm saying like laugh with
Absolutely.
your kids, have a bit of fun, laugh at yourself. We all that
Absolutely.
not perfect and it's
Yeah.
fun. So intention, discipline, and lots of playfulness.
Lots of playfulness. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, Arvashni. It was nice talking to you. It has been a very insightful last 30 or 40 minutes of the discussion. Wish you all the best and we'll see you soon. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ramesh. Thanks for having me. It was wonderful to
Sure.
talk with you.
My pleasure. Thank you.